The first thing I notice is the title. With the title, I start to ask questions like, what is Stone Fox? Is it a person? Is it a place? The next thing I notice is my picture in the front here. With this, I'm going to make some predictions about the book. I noticed in the picture that there's a boy and his dog, so I'm going to predict that the story is about a boy and his dog on their farm and maybe their adventures that they take on this farm. When I open up to the first page, I notice the title of the chapter is called Grandfather. From here, I'm going to predict that the chapter is going to be about the little boy's grandfather, and maybe it's his farm that they are staying at. After reading the first paragraph here, I'm asking questions about why the grandfather is in his bed and why he is so sad, like what made him that sad. Looking at the next paragraph here, I'm able to synthesize some new information. I found out that the little boy in the picture's name is Little Willie, that it is his grandfather, that's the one in the bed, that they do live on a farm. It's a small potato farm in Wyoming. At the bottom here, with the boy talking about all the way his grandfather kind of plays tricks on them, I'm able to infer that the boy and his grandfather have a close relationship, and the grandpa's kind of a trickster and likes to play jokes on the little boy. After reading that grandfather always got up early in the morning, I start asking the question of, if he always gets up early, why isn't he getting up today? What's keeping him in bed? Is he okay? Is there something wrong with him? Going down to when it talks about once little Lily went back to sleep, here I was able to make a connection about when I was in school and I would accidentally fall asleep, how when I woke up, my parents would be gone or be leaving for work, so it would be on me then to try to quickly get myself ready, and I would have to take the bus instead of getting a ride from my parents. So, like it says that he never slept in late again after that. The same thing happened to me where I learned my lesson and I did not sleep in again after that. Looking down at that is until this morning. With this, I read it. I did fluent and phrased reading because of the ... It showed the kind of the emphasis of this is really important, that there's something very different going on right now than normal. At the bottom of page 4 here, when little Willie is trying to tell his grandfather to get up, that he doesn't want to play anymore, and then he ends up running out of the house. This I'm able to infer that little Willie is now realizing that there is something very wrong with his grandfather and he needs to get help right away. Up over on page 5 here, where it talks about the fact that Searchlight and Willie were born on the same day, I was able to build a connection here because my first dog and I were also born on the same day, so it was kind of fun to have that bond with your dog that you had shared a birthday together. Coming down to a mile down the road, they came a small log cabin surrounded by all trees. Doc Smith was sitting in the rocking chair. For this, I was able to build on my background knowledge to how things were like way back in the day before there was any technology at all, and the fact that you weren't able just to call the doctor or call 911 if you had an emergency, but you needed to actually go to the doctor itself. When I read that he was all out of breath and he was very panicked and told the doctor to come quick, I was able to build a connection from when I was in elementary school and a student got sick in our room and the teacher sent me to the nurse to get help, and I went super quick, and so I was all out of breath, and I was trying to tell the teacher how urgent it was and just how fast I had to move. Looking at the graphic on page 6, I was able to remember the information that I read before about little Willie and Searchlight running to see Doc Smith. This picture illustrates that scene. You can see Searchlight and little Willie running, and here's Doc Smith here sitting reading her book. At the bottom of page 6 here, when even Doc Smith is telling Willie that he's probably joking, I was able to infer that the grandfather must be known as a trickster and everything, since even the Doc Smith believes that he's not actually, anything's actually wrong with him, he's just messing around. But when I look up here at the top of page 7 where it says your grandfather went to bed without playing his harmonica, from here I was able to infer that Doc Smith is seeing that there is actually a problem and that the grandfather wasn't acting like himself prior. Going down to here where it talks about how little Willie hitched Rex to the wagon, I was able to synthesize new information and understand that the story took place before there was even cars or anything, where people had to use horses and wagons to get around. Down here with Searchlight put her big front paws on the bed and rested her head on Grandfather's chest, I was able to build a connection here, because whenever I get sick, my dogs like to come and lay right by me and kind of keep me company, and they it's almost like they know that something's not right. On page 8 here, this picture, I was able to remember the past information about Searchlight putting her paws on the bed and kind of resting by Grandpa. So this picture illustrated that scene of Searchlight trying to be a companion to Grandfather. At the top here, must you ask so many questions, Dr. Smith said. I was able to build a connection with her. As a teacher, especially with my kindergartners, they like to ask questions about everything. They need to know what everything is for, what is everything doing. And so I could understand her kind of frustration of, why are you asking so many questions? Just kind of let me do my work. At the bottom here, when she's starting to ask Willie about how the farm's doing, if they owe any money and stuff like that, I'm starting to ask questions myself about why is she asking these questions? Why isn't she just telling Willie what's going on? And then it also is asking what is going on with Grandfather that she would need to ask these types of questions. On page 10, at the top, where she talks about how he is as healthy as an ox, I start to ask myself, why is he not getting out of bed then? Because if he is as healthy as an ox, it doesn't sound like there is anything that should be keeping him in bed. But then when I go down to the next paragraph here, where she talks about that he has just kind of given up on life and he just doesn't want to keep going anymore. For this, I kind of used my background knowledge, and to me it sounded a lot like depression, from what I understood about how it's just really hard to get up in the morning, and even though things in your life aren't necessarily going wrong, you still just have that overarching feeling of just not wanting to continue and live. But in the bottom paragraph here with little Willie, and he's talking about what about like fishing? What about this? Like he doesn't understand why his grandfather isn't happy. I was able to infer that little Willie's just confused about why his grandfather doesn't want to live, because in his eyes, everything is going great in his grandfather's life. They have so much fun. He doesn't understand why his grandfather would be so sad. Finally, the last paragraph here, when little Willie is talking about how he's going to find a way to make things better, I built a connection about when someone's sad, just like that kind of urgency of like, you can fix it and you can make it better, and just like the drive to want to help as much as you can. Ultimately, at the end of reading this story, I still had questions. I still was asking questions about what is Willie going to do to try to help his grandfather. Is it going to work? And these are all things that I'm sure would be answered in the rest of the story.